Hey there folks, got a new knife for you. What I have here is the new Mini Typhoon by Sharp by Design. The owner, designer, maker, Brian Nadeau. You may have seen this in the recent Wieners and Steel episode that we just filmed this weekend. I just wanted to do a nice vid on it, a nice overview vid on it with better lighting. I didn't want you guys to miss out on any of the details of this exceptional knife. Now, this was a pre-order that Brian started sometime last year. I forget exactly when. He's cranking them out. The people that pre-ordered them, they will be getting it shortly. The Wieners did get, 3 Wieners got their Mini Typhoons, and I want just to share it with you guys in more detail. So the overall length of this knife is 8 inches. So it's a smaller, it's the mini of his original Typhoon. The blade length is 3.5 inches. Now, there was a little discrepancy on Wieners and Steel. We were misinformed. Well, I should say that me and Brian were misinformed. The Fruch was actually correct in saying that this blade steel is, in fact, CPM S90V. So you should never doubt the Fruch. He was absolutely correct. This is on stainless steel bearings, which makes a very smooth flipper. The frame, of course, is titanium. There were different options, and I'll discuss that in a little bit, that were available when you pre-ordered this Mini Typhoon. The pocket clip, I thought it was titanium. It actually is stainless steel, same as the lock insert. So it's a stainless lock and pocket clip. The pocket clip, you see, is a screwless pocket clip, very similar to Keybar's pocket clip, but this is Brian's own design that he's implemented in many of his later model folders. Again, you can see that he does have a steel lock insert, which acts as an over travel, and also Brian's what does he call this? It doesn't have a traditional detent ball if you guys are familiar with Brian's work, and you might be able to see there that this has a milled out along in this steel insert. There is a milled out what he calls a detent nub. Let me see if I can get the light on it. You can see it better. Maybe I was gonna see that. Can you see that? I hope I did this so much better when I was rehearsing it. It's so hard to capture. Okay, there. See that nub? So that piece of steel right there is acting as a detent ball. It's not round, and the blade rides on that, just like it would a regular detent ball. But it's machined out of that piece of steel that's acting as the over travel and the steel lock insert. It's something that Brian created. Get a better look at it. It's excellently designed, perfectly executed. So when your lock rides on that detent nub, and once it leaves it, there isn't that gap. Like in some knives where you know that there's a little bit of a gap, this one kind of like just rides and off. It's a little bit of a, I guess there's a little bit of a pause there, but it's basically the nub milled down to accommodate a smoother lockup. See that? Now, there were a couple options if you ordered this knife with the titanium handle, a couple of different finishes. You could get the plain, which Lee Frucci ordered. He got the plain tie, but on the inside he had interior pockets milled out to make it lighter, so it's not visible on the outside, but on the inside you could definitely feel on Lee's knife that his and mine and Brian's knives were comparable in weight. Now, me and Brian opted for these aspirated holes, these vents that go all the way through, as you can see. definitely making the titanium lighter. My good friend Joe Bananas, who just received his Typhoon today, he went with the chevrons. And if you're familiar with Brian's work, he has this milling pattern that looks like chevrons on his handles. I'm not sure. I don't quite remember. I was trying to look at Brian's site to see what are other options. I didn't want to really bother him and call him and ask him because I know he's cranking these out. I think those were the available options for the handles. There might be more. I'm not really remembering right now. Now, as far as the blade style, you could select from a drop point, an American Tanto, a Japanese Tanto, and a harpoon blade. Initially, what I ordered was a harpoon blade. But when Brian started posting pics of what the harpoon blade looked like, which looked great, but with the blade steel, I also wanted a fuller, as you can see here. And with the harpoon blade, it just, for me, for my particular taste, I didn't think the fuller just went well with the harpoon blade. So I opted for the drop point blade. Now, mine and Brian's, Brian got the American Tanto, Lee got the Japanese Tanto. Mine and Brian's are clipped, which this section of the blade is removed. Now, if you saw Venus and Steel, you saw Lee got the Japanese Tanto. His blade was not clipped, and the fuller extended a little bit longer, which I gotta admit, I thought it was a little bit sexier. A little bit sexier. I do like this. It's almost a Persian style, this clip drop point. I asked Brian to polish the flats on mine, and I think Brian and Lee, all three wieners, got the flats satin. Now the blade finish is, now there's a little bit confusion because again at Ruts the lighting is horrible, so we couldn't really tell. Of course now we can tell that the finish on the blade is a very, very fine, as you can see, stone wash. But at Ruts, it looks like it could have been like a bead blast. But now, under this better lighting, you can see there's a very fine stone wash. He also did it on the handles. Now, I believe Brian also offered different options for the blade as far as satin on the scales if you wanted it anodized, or again with the patterns, right? As you can see, my hardware is also sandblasted. Lee opted for the polished hardware. So on Lee's knife, if you go again to the vid, you'll see that his hardware is polished. The screws are polished. His steel lock insert is polished. I believe his pocket clip was also polished. And again, that was an option that Lee chose and Brian accommodated. So basically I went with a natural looking tie. Brian got the bronze anodization, bronze color. You could have got any color you wanted pretty much that you can anodize on titanium. I opted for a little bling on my titanium backspacer with this, again, the gear pattern. I think that's what he called. The gear pattern is also an option. We also got the jimping. So there was fine and coarse. And I went for a little color just to set it off a little bit. But now that when I got it, I kind of wish I didn't. I kind of like the monochromatic effect of just having the natural looking tie color. But it's still cool nevertheless. Nevertheless, very cool. The action is awesome on this knife. Again, the first thing I noticed right away and checking out the knife is how much lighter it was than most of my regular knives, and I really love that. And again, it's just my taste, my evolving taste. If you guys have been watching the channel for a long time, I'm a big fan of the Tanto blade, and as you can see, I didn't go with the Tanto this time like the boys did. American Tanto, which Brian went with, the American Tanto clipped. From what Brian's telling us, only 2 people ordered that, so that's pretty unique. I want to say that the drop point is probably the most popular one. Maybe. I could be wrong. At least they all look pretty phenomenal. I haven't seen one in person that's the Harpoon one. Be definitely interested to see that. Check it out. Maybe I'll go visit Brian one day. Yeah, so the Mini Typhoon by Brian Ado. Now, Brian, you might remember we did a quick a vid about 2-3 years ago. Yeah, about 3 years ago at a firehouse where I first met Brian, and he was showing us his new knives. I never met him before, never heard of him, never seen his work. I was immediately impressed. And that following year in Blade 2014, Brian won Best Tactical Folder at a Blade show. The work is definitely there. It's an amazing knife. If you guys ordered it, you guys are going to be very, very pleased with your selection, I'm sure. I did drive Brian crazy because, to be honest, I couldn't remember the options I chose, and then it changed a few times. Like I said, I changed the blade style from Harpoon to this drop point, clip point. But yes, Brian delivered. It's an amazing folder. Incredible work, Brian. Congrats. And congrats to everybody that got a hold of one, that's going to get a hold of one. I think I covered everything. Nice flow-through design. Very clean. Like I said, very light. Love Brian's design on the flipper tab. Perfect for push button. Excellent. All right, folks. So that's the Mini Typhoon by Sharp by Design. Brian Ado. Peace.